Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on this webinar Wednesday. It's just a little bit past noon, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Toby Cortelyou. I am the Director of Enrollment Management for the MSc program here at Northwestern, and I'm excited to talk to you today about a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, essay writing. It's near and dear to my heart because I read a lot of these. And so this webinar today is this much self-serving in that I'm hopefully going to have we're hopefully going to have a little bit of an impact on the essays that you decide to write and submit for the MSc program. And then we're going to get to kind of reap what we sow here. I have been working in college admissions for just over 20 years. Started my career at Loyola University working in undergrad admissions, so working with high school students and their families. Spent a couple years as a recruiter, as a headhunter for accounting and finance executives. After that, I spent almost 8 years at the University of Chicago working for the business school, managing marketing and admissions for the MBA programs there. And while I was working at the University of Chicago, I joined the MSc program. So I'm an alum of this program and graduated from MSc in 2012 and then joined the staff in 2015. And so have been working here managing the enrollment and admissions operations since 2015. And that's kind of where I am. And I'm excited that we are joined by my friend Naz Yarkhan today. And I'm going to let Naz introduce herself.
Thank you so much, Toby, for inviting me. I too am an alum of the MSc program, and it was one of the best decisions I could have made for my career. I do college essay coaching, and I am a professional writer and a professional editor. Students who work with me have gotten into Columbia, Cornell, Duke, Northwestern, of course, and Big Ten schools, also Vanderbilt and so on. And I'm here to share Toby's enthusiasm for the college essay writing process and just share some tips as to what makes for a compelling essay and what you can do to have that competitive edge.
Wonderful. So I'm going to share my screen here. We've got some slides to work through. And if you have any questions at any time, please feel free to, it's a small enough group, but to either raise your hand or enter them into the chat, and we can try to get to those as we go. But to set the stage here, we're kind of talking about two different things here, right? Deciding what to write about is a very important piece of the process and oftentimes doesn't get enough attention in our view, and then the process of writing itself. So the presentation is kind of divided into two major chunks here: deciding what to write about, and then the act of writing and what to kind of consider and think about as you're doing it. The MSc prompts for the specifically are as follows. The first MSc prompt is, why are you applying specifically to the MSc program at Northwestern University? And how do you hope to add value to the MSc experience of your classmates? So you can see we're very, very tricky in that we've really asked you two questions in our one question, asking you about why specifically you're interested in the program and how you hope to add value. And then we have some guidance there in terms of length, limiting to 2 pages, 12-point font. And then we also give you an opportunity to write an optional essay. Here it reads, if there's anything else that you would like to share with the admissions committee, please feel free to submit an optional essay, and that is limited to 1 page, double-spaced 12-point font. So we want to unpack these a little bit with, like I said, sharing some guidance in terms of deciding how to go about what content you should be including in both or either one of these essays. To frame it a little bit further, these are the questions that the admissions committee is constantly asking while evaluating applications. First, can you manage the academic rigor of the program? That's not largely going to be answered in an essay. So we're going to use academic transcripts, professional background, those types of things to help answer that question. The next two questions can be answered in the essay, in the interview, in the recommendations. So the second question, are your goals consistent with what the program delivers? Basically, can you draw a straight line between what you believe the MSc program provides, what we're going to do for you, and where you want to go, why you're coming here, whether it's professional goals, personal goals. Can you connect those two things? And then that last one is the second half of that first essay prompt. How are you going to add value to the experience of your classmates? What are your classmates going to come to you for? How are you going to enrich the year that you spend with those people? And there are many, many different ways to answer this question, and we appreciate them all. Anyway, like I said, I just kind of wanted to frame it a little bit further by pulling back the curtain and helping you understand how the essay is used by the admissions committee. So to jump right in though, deciding what to write about, this is where I hand it over to Nash. She's the expert here and is going to talk to you about content to consider.
All right, so can we flip to the next slide?
Yes.
Now, if you've gone through undergrad school here in the United States, you know, a lot of you have to do the Common App, right? So those prompts are an amazing place to start some brainstorming as to what do you want to write about. Oftentimes, you might want to consider writing about your background, your identity, a talent. These are not things you have to do, but these are just ideas for you to consider. What would make your application stand out? And now we're not looking for a whole life story, right? We're looking for experience that might fit best to position you as the best fit for the program. So that means look at and see what in your worldview and in your work experience and in your educational pursuits matches up and dovetails with what the MSc program will provide you. And if you don't have that, suppose you're looking for a career switch, be very upfront about it, because there are some job skills that you have that will definitely help you have that foundation. So even if there's not 100% match and it isn't dovetailing perfectly, there will be enough in your life that you can say, well, this was foundational to my deciding to change my career into communications, or this is how I want to further build on what I have already done. Next, please. And another approach you might have is talking about the obstacles you've overcome or a challenge you've overcome and how that fits in with what you want to share and learn from the program. For example, one of my experience was I used to be a managing editor of a magazine, and it was a B2B, a trade journal. The editor and publisher, the managing editor and publisher, he didn't want to have anything but food factories on the cover, you know. So what I did was I said, well, factories and bottles of vitamins don't make for a very interesting cover, right? Who wants to pick that up? But because I didn't want to offend him, what I did is set out a whole bunch of different trade journals and have the entire staff put sticky notes, rating those. And which ones came up to top were magazines that had food on the cover. So that's how my publisher and boss agreed that food on the cover made all the difference. So that became a story that I wrote about when I applied to the program, because it really helped me position myself as a problem solver, someone who could work with a team, someone who could approach a challenge creatively and in an out of the box way. So when you're looking at it, you can look at personal things. You can also look at professional obstacles that you've overcome, because it speaks to the value you will bring to the program. Next, please. Again, this is very similar to the previous problem where you might have a challenge that you've overcome and how you did that. So what was the thought process involved? What were the challenges you had to think of differently so that you could come to your conclusion? And I know you don't have a whole bunch of words to work with, but that's why I would always say, they say that, you know, there's an optional essay. I always recommend students to fill that, because it shows that you're willing to do the extra work. You're willing to go the extra mile. Next, please. Again, here, it's discuss an accomplishment or a realization that sparked a period of personal growth, a new understanding of yourself and others. It's an idea. You don't have to use all these. You can just pick and choose, like I said, and Here, when you're talking about personal growth, some people have been through a lot, especially this year. What in that growth cycle have would you like to share? For example, are you that much more disciplined? Are you that much more of a self-starter now that you might be working remotely? If you weren't, if you were laid off, what did your work schedule look like as you tried to find a new job? Were you able to send 5 resumes out? How did you discipline yourself? How did you manage your time? All of that goes into the essay, and it reflects well on you if you were able to manage your time that much better. If you were able to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and send out the fifth resume for the day, all of that shows that you are a capable person. You are able to manage your time. You are able to go the extra mile. And that's what they're looking for in a graduate level program. Next, please. Similarly, this is another topic that you could write about. What makes you lose track of time? So if you have a passion project, here's where you talk about it. Next. And I think Toby will take it from here.
Muted. Sorry, I was muted. That's the the most popular phrase of the last 11 months is you're on mute. So yeah, so all of those slides, all of those concepts that Naz is talking about are telling a story, right? They're all telling stories, and a common, I think, urge for people when writing essays is to kind of walk through their resume or just kind of talk about steps that they've made professionally. And we have your resume for that, right? And so choosing these stories from your life, whether it be professional or personal, that tell us a little bit more about who you are going to be that much more compelling and help set you apart from other applicants to the program. So to talk a little bit about the specific process that we encourage you to consider, so Naz is just walking you through many different options for content, right? For deciding what to write about. And I'm sure that as we were going through those slides, you were thinking of stories and you were thinking of times in your life when some of those things were present. So now what? How do you decide which one? With only 2 pages to fill that in, you have to be somewhat discerning in terms of choosing what to talk about. And this is where we advise you to talk to your friends and family about these things, talk to your coworkers, include other people in this process, right? For multiple reasons. They're going to help you do what I just described, discern which stories they believe are most compelling. And they also might have some ideas for you that you haven't thought of. I also share the same advice in terms of enlisting recommendations for the program as well. Have a conversation with these people that are close to you about the reasons that you're considering going to grad school, and talk to them about how you're hoping to leverage your experience and personality in the application process. And I'm very confident that to a person, you will be surprised at how excited they are to help, and surprised at how excited they are to share what they believe your strengths are, and opportunities for you to, like I said, leverage those strengths in your application. So include other people in this process. It doesn't have to be private by any means. The next one is what you're doing right now. You're again already thinking of ideas of things to write about. Write them down, jot them down. There's going to be a lot of them, and then just kind of a stream of consciousness when it comes to ideas and stories throughout your life and career that have been that have shaped who you are. Some personal and some professional. Write down as many as you can, and then go back and decide which one or ones make the most sense to write about. So the process, so here we've barely put pen to paper, right? And we're still a ways into the writing process. The next piece is to make an outline. This seems, I think that most of us learned how to make an essay outline somewhere around 6th or 7th grade. And so this is a lesson coming back, right? To what are the key points that you're hoping to deliver? What are the key themes? What is the thesis of this essay that you're writing? and how do the different parts of your essay kind of connect back to that thesis. The who are you, and here are the stories that are reinforcing that idea of who you are, why the MSc program makes sense for you, and how you hope to add value. So making an outline and being adaptable, being able to let that outline evolve, but keeping consistent throughout with themes and callbacks through the essay are going to make it more compelling and more likely to stick with the readers. Naj, you have a great analogy here about the essay as a selfie.
Yeah. So it's your selfie, right? It's about you. It's not about someone who inspired you. It's not about a boss who was overbearing. Think about it as your essay, your selfie. And like a selfie, keep your filters on. And what are your filters? Punctuation, grammar, not writing the wrong school's name in the essay. I work with students and they'll copy paste different essays for different schools, and they'll leave the wrong names in. But the issue with that is people who are reading that, they know it isn't customized to that particular school. You're sounding generic. Get to know the school so that they know that you really care about this particular program. And then, of course, spell check is not your best friend, right? THERE and THEIR are very different. So it's simple things like that. And then, of course, one idea per paragraph. Don't be sure that you're being very, very clear as to what you're saying. Next, please. I also say that it's not a movie. It's just a selfie. We don't need your entire life story. We need one snapshot. You have just a page, and that's double spaced at that. So be very, very mindful of editing. Take out all the redundant words. If you can see one thing in like a whole concept in fewer words, do that. But also sound very conversational. You know how a resume doesn't really have your voice in it, but a cover letter does. A cover letter has something of your voice in it. Personal essay is very much your voice. It's what the reader wants to, the person the reader wants to get to know. But that doesn't mean you use slang. That doesn't mean that typos and grammatical errors are okay. You're still trying to impress someone. So be your most thoughtful, your most eloquent self. Next.
I like that. Just to extend that analogy a little further, this selfie and filters idea, the message that I hear when Naz talks about this is that make this unique to you. I've read enough essays to know when somebody has written them with a thesaurus, right? Like if you're using words that we don't use to speak in normal language, this is how, think of it as you telling a story again, your personal stories to the admissions committee, and you don't use 17 syllable words when you're, most of us don't use 17 syllable words when we're talking to people. So making this unique to yourself and speaking in your own voice and not trying to guess at a specific tone or voice or message that we want to hear, but just telling us about you is the most important piece. Which leads into this next number 7 here, show, not tell. What I mean by that is it's easy for me to tell you things that I believe are true about me. I can tell you that I'm a very hard worker. I can tell you that I'm very organized. I can tell you that I come up with good ideas. But providing examples really make it so, right? You have no reason to believe anything that I say if I can't provide some specific examples or stories to back them up. So providing some, so saying here's what people have said about me doesn't carry much weight unless you can explain to me through some examples or stories about times that has been true in your life. This is true not just for your essay, but also for the interview as well. And so things to keep in mind, being able to kind of back up any claims that you're making about yourself is very important. And then the last one, I think, has been kind of a through theme here, which is be genuine. Poor Pinocchio down there had trouble figuring out who he was, right, all through his story. And I think that if you're applying to grad school, this is an introspective experience, the application itself is meant and designed to be fairly introspective, where you're thinking a lot about your goals in life and what makes you who you are. And that journey is going to accelerate during the time that you're a student in the program. But like I said before, trying to guess at a tone or voice or story that the admissions committee wants to hear is a it's a futile effort, because we don't have one. We don't have I would love to say, here's the perfect story for everybody to write about, but it's not a thing that exists, because everybody's so unique and everybody's so individual that's applying to the program. So, and it's a leap of faith, I understand, in asking you to have confidence in the admissions committee to make the best decisions that are mutually beneficial for all parties, right? Telling us your personal story and then putting that in our hands to discern whether or not we're a fit for each other is, like I said, a leap of faith. But it is absolutely the best chance at standing out and having a positive impact on the committee. So those are the kind of pieces that we wanted to highlight today. All again in this frame of admission to the MSc program and how to kind of present yourself to answer these questions that are coming from the admissions committee. But I think that we have some time left here for any questions that anybody might have about the process, deciding what content makes the most sense, the process of writing itself. We're happy to take any questions as I stop sharing my screen here. Feel free to either raise your hand or enter any questions that you might have into the chat. Mishari asks if we have any examples of essay topics that blew us away. Naz, does anything come to mind? I'm sure you've read many essays over the years, and I'm gonna have to think about this for a minute.
I would say we've read essays that run the gamut. Okay, they run the gamut from an illness someone has overcome to still show up and do what's needed, to how they turned around a company. So there really, I wouldn't say there is a unique story or one story that makes it or breaks it. It's how well you've written it. How well does the reader feel engaged in your story? Are you using your five senses? Are you using the right language? Are you drawing the reader into what Toby mentioned by showing, not telling, right? So I wouldn't say there's a specific topic. It's how well you engage your reader that makes all the difference. And of course, it has to be relevant. Does it speak to your strengths? It doesn't speak to your strengths, then does it show that you're solution oriented? If you've had a rough patch, how did you turn that around? That's what's also important, not just talking about something that went south, but then not really discussing how you manage to overcome the odds. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, mine's the same. I feel like a politician by not giving a very specific essay example, but I think that, and this is anybody, reading a personal story from somebody, about something that somebody's overcome, whether it was in their youth or, like you said, some loss or something like that, can be compelling. Big wins in a person's life, something that you've worked really hard for, something that was a challenge for you that you either overcame or put a lot of time and effort to, and are very, very proud of the result. These stories make me excited for the interview, right? Like I read this and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to meet this person so we can talk more about, the time that they started a company, whatever, their own social enterprise or whatever it is. So again, it's just the personal things, the things that can make us feel connected to you as an individual. I don't know if anybody had a chance to attend, I think it was a month ago now, 3 weeks ago, Michelle Shoemate's session on first impressions. And she was talking about how when we meet somebody for the first time, we're measuring two things. We're measuring a person's competency and their trustworthiness or warmth. And the essay is similar in that this is a kind of first impression for you. Your resume is going to largely deliver on the competency part. Are you smart, intelligent? Do you know what you're talking about? And the essay is your opportunity to really emphasize the warmth, the trustworthiness. What are some stories? What are some, being a little bit vulnerable is how you can kind of convey some of that warmth or trustworthiness to somebody upon a first impression. So now I'm rambling, but you get the idea about kind of what it is that I think can be compelling in an essay. I did get a private message asking if there are still spots for people beginning in the fall of 2021, and there absolutely are. Our final application deadline isn't until June, so we're kind of deliberate in terms of offering seats to the program throughout. So by all means, there's plenty of time to still apply to the program. Sorry, Naz, I cut you off.
No, it's okay. And about the optional personal essay, why don't you take that question first?
I agree with Naz, is that I kind of get excited to read the optional essay because this is clearly something that the way I would describe it is that if there's anything that you think the admissions committee should know that you haven't told us yet, now's your chance. Some people decide to talk to us about maybe a semester of bad grades, right, in undergrad. Others decide to talk about, as Naz was talking earlier, passion projects. What do you volunteer? Do you do any volunteer work or philanthropic work? Unpack that for us a little bit. Do you have a special relationship with a family member or a person that you want to unpack a little bit more for us? An optional essay is an opportunity to do that. So if there's anything, I guess to answer the question directly, Annie, is if there's anything that you think rounds off the edges of your story that we haven't heard about through either recommendations, your essay, your resume, or potentially an interview, then the optional essay is your chance to do that. I see Ahmad has a hand up. Ahmad, you're welcome to take yourself off mute and ask a question if you like.
Hi there. Yeah, I was actually going to ask about the optional essay in terms of should I submit it with the actual essay itself, or should I submit it after the interview? I couldn't be here during the beginning of the lecture because I had internet issues. So yeah, thank you very much.
Sure, that's no problem. Fair question. So the essays, both of those essays would come before the interview. So we collect all of your admissions materials, your resume, academic transcripts, recommendations, and these essays before a person is invited to an interview. So the optional essay would be included before you click that submit button on the application. Yeah.
You know, one way I might ask, like in your personal statement, you can talk more about your professional aspirations, maybe work related. And in your personal essay, you might want to talk more about something that like a growth curve you've overcome. So I had a student once applying to law school, and he wrote about his father having bipolar and their whole family story. And then he segued that into how he today wants to work as a lawyer for people with special needs. So how do they create their will and their last testament? What are the things they need to take into consideration? What are the things their parents need to take into consideration as to who's going to look after this child who has special needs? And how is he going to manage his money after the parents are no more? So that's how he segued his personal story into his professional aspirations. I had another girl applying for dentistry school, and her personal statement was about her child with autism and how dentists who deal with children, who not deal with children, but who serve kids who have special needs are few and far between. And what does that require? And why does her personal experience position her so uniquely to be a dentist who works with children with special needs because she has one herself? So it runs the gamut of trying to marry your personal life to your professional aspirations, if that helps.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that parallels the experience in the MSc program a lot, right? The experience in the program, the concepts and theories and lessons that we teach in the program aren't just for your career, they're for your life. Communication isn't something that you only use at work. And so the tools that we help you with and equip you with are going to be useful to you in both professional and personal environments. So that's a terrific approach. Thank you. We have one more question, and then I think we'll wrap up. Lexi asked how long it takes to typically receive an invitation to interview after submitting the application. And so just to make sure we're all clear, submitting the application is having all of those materials in, the resume, the essay, the recommendations, academic transcripts. Once we have all of that information collected, you've clicked the submit button. We make decisions to interview very quickly, usually within 2 or 3 days at the most. Depending on some variables, which include, I mean, if it's immediately after a deadline, we might be a little bit inundated. It could take as much to a week or two, but very, very quickly, most of the time, in terms of after you clicking the submit button, us receiving all of your materials. Once you've interviewed, so it might take a while to schedule the interview based on everybody's availability. Once the interview is complete, we generally have admission decisions, final decisions released within 2 weeks, give or take, of the interview happening. So that's kind of the process and timeline. So thank you for that question. Happy to kind of unpack that. So we're a little bit over time, but I really appreciate everybody's attention and your insightful questions today. And I'm very grateful to Naz for joining us today. Naz, do you want to type into the chat the name of the Writer's Studio or a website that people could visit if they're interested in talking to you more?
Yeah, it's writersstudio.us.
Okay.
And one thing I would say is that start sooner rather than later, because you're going to want to change a topic. Once you start writing, you might find that you're running against a dead end and you might want to change your topic. And it's perfectly okay to say, well, I feel stronger in this area than the other, so I rather write a different story. And you will have that luxury only if you start sooner. I had a kid who wrote 4 different Common App essays before he even saw me. Yes, he was over ambitious for sure, but start sooner because you might not like the direction in which a certain essay is going, and you want to have that flexibility to swap. And I always expect at least 6 drafts from my kids because they are applying to very, very competitive programs. So this is not to freak you out, but give yourself some room. Thank you, Toby, for inviting me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Naz. So quick plug for the next couple webinars. So next week on March 3rd, Professor Mike Roloff is going to be speaking to us about a topic that is yet to be determined, but anybody, so Mike has been teaching the change management course in the MSC program since the MSC program started more than 35 years ago. This is, I believe, his 42nd year teaching at Northwestern University. And anybody that has ever met Professor Roloff will tell you that it doesn't matter what he's going to talk about. It is going to be fun. And so I encourage you to join us to listen to Professor Roloff talk about some of his experiences over 40 plus years of teaching and doing research at Northwestern. And then we have a week off. And then 2 weeks after that, March 17th, Professor Nashir Contractor, who teaches the Understanding and Leveraging Networks course to both students in the custom and hybrid programs, is going to be teaching or talking to us about networking during a crisis, specifically during COVID. How do you maintain, increase, improve, enhance your personal and professional networks in a time of crisis, in a time of unique volatility and upheaval in your and everybody's lives? And so that would that's certainly timely and exciting, and very much looking forward to that. So those are our next 2 sessions. Thank you again, everyone, for joining today. Special thanks to Naz for your insights.
Welcome.
And hope to see you next weekend or next Wednesday. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.